Welcome to Global Resources for Men. I'm your host, Alicia Buss, and I am so incredibly excited and honored to have the one and only Alok Appadurai with us. He is the founder of Uplift Millions. He is an influence coach for over 1,000 leaders around the world, a movement maker, a father, a spouse, a speaker. He and his amazing team at Uplift Millions Alliance, combined with his superpower of ethical influence, come together to be able to empower and train leaders and idealists all over the world as they just like work through their limiting beliefs and help them shift identities and really get rid of the malware and what he likes to call the invisible OS so they can maximize their impact potential. I've had the great privilege of having a look as a coach, and I'm just so excited to have him here as we talk about like really how men can help master their emotions to create more money, more abundance, have a better marriage, and talk about something that's really near and dear to my life myself right now, shifting from traditional alpha to sacred alpha. And in this climate, even more importantly, conscious leadership. Alok, thank you so much for being here with us today.
That was such a joy. Thank you so much for having me on. This is powerful topics for us to explore.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So you've done so much with impact. You're uplifting millions. You've run many businesses. And you have such a beautiful partnership with Caitlin. I would love to hear like what brought you to this thing of like how men should master their emotions and have that impact their money and their marriage.
Well, I think the first thing to say is that it's an ongoing journey. That I certainly, I tell people that I lead from truth, not from perfection. And
Mm,
she'd be the first to tell you that I am not perfect at any of this. It's really just a commitment to unlearning that
mm,
which I and many other men were programmed to think, to function, to how we
yeah.
view women, and just begin to say, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not the way forward. And so we just sort of one by one, more and more of us are just asking harder questions of ourselves. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that we are perfect in our delivery or expression of it, but we're at least leading a generation that's saying, yeah, there's got to be a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your humbleness in that, right?
Well, I'm
Like
in
so
it.
many
I'm totally in it. I mean, I like, we don't need to pretend. Like, I'm not some guy on a pedestal. I'm a guy in the trenches, like anybody else who's awakening and realizing, shoot, yeah, maybe I'm making some progress in some areas, and it's still a work in progress in other areas. And so I think that's the most honest truth that I could give to any man, that, don't look up. Most of the men I know, it's not, they don't have it totally figured out either. And so I just asked the universe, God source, to just keep sending me more men around me who are like at least asking the questions, even if they're imperfectly walking down the road.
mm. I love how you said that and how like to drop the performative masks. That's what I'm hearing
Oh my
is
God.
to just be authentic and yeah,
Yeah, give yourself, pat on the back where you improve something, and then continue to be real with yourself on where you're still not showing up as well as you could. My lady still is unhappy with me in certain ways at certain times. It's like, shoot, gosh, I'm still figuring that out. And I'm unhappy with her in certain ways at certain times. And
yeah,
she's still figuring out her side of
yeah,
the equation and unlearning a lot of the unhealthy things that women are taught in their own ways. And so
for sure.
this is the real.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you find like in regards to making money and partnership and all that and mastering your emotions, what do you feel like men are struggling with the most?
Dysregulated central nervous system.
Mm,
So high reactivity, and it's the inability to stay calm, the inability to not to not react and instead be able to respond. But really, it's the speed of the dysregulated central nervous system is,
Mm.
I think, the number one relational uh, impediment and financial impediment. And that's true for people that are successful financially. When I see people who are successful financially and they have dysregulated nervous systems, clients that I work with, I'm like, oh my God, they have no idea what could be changed as they at least start the process of working on that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. What do you like? I feel like there's a lot of burnout and overwhelm that happens, right? This idea that like men are supposed to be providing, and there's all these expectations that are being pushed on them and pushed on them, and they just get overwhelmed, right? And then they shut down, and it's just like, well, how do I even start? And they're just stuck, right, in this puzzle of like, how do I show up for my lady? How do I show up for my kids or like partner, like whatever people want to engage with? And then their money starts to dwindle, right? And then they feel more, and it's just this spiraling stuff. Like, what would be your advice to men who are stuck in that space and like they just don't even know where to go?
Be gentle with yourself first and foremost. It's real what she just described. She's naming what so many of us go through. And, many people, there's a sort of a backlash of, feeling bad for men. And
Yeah,
got it. It's like, I'm not asking anybody to necessarily feel bad for me, but I am going to validate to myself what's hard in my own journey and what
right.
takes a toll on me. And, there's two words that will fuel a man forever, and it's thank and you. Thank you. And
Mm,
it's appreciation, gratitude. What do men really crave more than sex? Men crave respect and appreciation. And
yeah,
so, and we are expected to be a certain way. We are expected, especially there's all this new age coaching right now that says that a man should just hold, no matter what his woman's emotions are. And I saw a meme the other day that said a lot of the big thinkers in this new terrain are actually backing away from that because, and the line went, there's burnt out, depleted men and infantilized, rageful women as a result of
mm,
this thing. And I was like, I may not say it exactly like that,
yeah,
but I think there's a next evolution to unfold where there's a continued growth in how we communicate. And so, to any man out there who's doing your best to be a spouse, a provider, and a leader of a company in some way, shape, or form, I tip my hat to you because past generations really only tried to be good at one of those things. They were
yeah,
either a great provider, but like weren't really there as a dad and kind of didn't treat their spouse very well, or they might not have been a great provider, but they were an awesome dad, right? Like
yeah,
they're going for one out of the three. And so for those of us that are attempting to at least raise the bar, raise the standard in all three at the same time, just give yourself credit that there isn't a playbook that you were handed for this. There isn't like
mm,
generations of learnings that have been passed down that say this is how to do all three really well. We're
yeah,
sort of, in some ways, I might position the idea, the first generation that's attempting to be all three and try to be great at all three when really we weren't really modeled what a great dad looks like, and we weren't most of us weren't really modeled what being a great husband or partner really looks like. And for most of us, we may have seen way too much alcoholism, way too much violence, way too much all sorts of things, and now you're attempting to write a new rule book with really no not very many living examples. So
yeah,
cut yourself some slack. That doesn't mean you are lax in your continued recommitment to a thing, but just
yeah.
exhale and go, fuck, this is not like a road well trod.
Yeah, I think that's why brotherhood is so important, right? It's just
Woo,
like we need to not have isolation, like
woo.
both to have men to be those role models, to hold your feet to the fire, to hold a space of grace and be like, yeah, this sucks for me too. Like I'm struggling to find balance. And yeah,
Yeah, in 2016, when I lost everything, I finally asked God, what am I missing? I put in long hours and, missed moments that matter with my family, trying to make ends meet and all the things,
yeah,
pursue my dreams, uplift humanity. And God was like, "Oh, you're finally ready." I said, "Well, yeah, lay it on me thick. I got no pride or ego left. Let's do this thing. What you got for me?" And Source kind of whispered in my ear and said, "You don't ask for help." And one of the biggest turning points that I could say to any man out there is to begin to chisel away at the false belief that asking for help is a sign of weakness.
mm,
Every successful man, and when I say every, I mean 100% of them that I
yeah,
know, they are successful in business because they ask for advice. They are successful in their marriage because they ask for advice. They are better fathers because they ask for advice. When
yeah,
we begin to eliminate the shame associated with asking for help and actually begin to write a new narrative that it is a sign of strength, it is a sign of commitment to greatness, it is a sign
yeah,
of love for yourself, your partner, and your children, and anybody else that may be impacted by you, well, then all of a sudden you might start raising your hand. Like I joke and I say, I'm the guy that has a third arm, growing out of my shoulder wherever I go. It's like I got a question, you know. So
yeah,
I just want to say, brotherhood takes. I used to have a false understanding of brotherhood. I had really good guy friends and good circles of guys, but in terms of like, going to men's circles and things like that, I had this false belief that I was going to just be like surrounded with a bunch of, complaining dudes, that really are just like victims to their circumstances. And
right.
that was completely unappealing to me. And so
Sure.
I get it if people are sort of like, yeah, who the heck wants to go sign up for that? What I began to do was say, I'm calling in, I asked the universe, I was like, I'm calling in men folk like me who care, who are going after our dreams, who aren't victims to life, but sometimes have some really hard circumstances. And we need trusted spaces that aren't going to judge us and that will carry us on their shoulders, carry us on their backs through some of the shitty moments where you get punched in the face a little bit. And you need at least, I would say, even if you can't kind of fully get yourself into a full, men's group, find even just one
Yeah,
who will just be there and who you'll be there for them too as needed.
yeah,
Even if you start there and you can admit, man, I just had a circumstance with my lady, or I just had a setback at work, not be a victim to it, because they're not going to want to carry that forever. By the way, that gets old.
yeah. It's gotta be
But
balanced.
it's got to be balanced. But to come from a vulnerable space, not keeping it within, where sometimes like I've got people around me who are like, "What do you need?" I'm like, honestly, I just need to be heard right now, so
Yep.
it's not coming out sideways somewhere else. I don't even need you to fix me right now.
I so love that you just brought that up because that's such an important thing that I talk to people about in my coaching, especially for women, right? Because to go back to what you said earlier in regards to like men are just supposed to be this container for women's rage and everything else. And I think it's so important that when we have something that we need to talk about, we're frustrated about, or whatever, we check in with the person that's in front of us and we're just like, hey, do you have the bandwidth and the time to hear me right now? And then they can ask, do you need a sounding board or do you need a solution? And like,
Woo!
oh, and then if the person says like, I need a sounding board, and your partner, the other person says, I don't have the bandwidth to hold space for you to be a sounding board, then that person needs to honor their person and go talk to one of their friends or another resource, because that's respect and that's love. And that's why we need to find other people, like, no matter what your gender identification is, in partnership, to just be like, you cannot put everything on your partner. It is not functional, it is not healthy, like, it is destructive at the end. Like, a person, you can't expect another person to hold everything for you. And so that's why I'm just like, yes, like, we need to not just expect our men to hold everything for us as women.
Yeah, and I can absolutely raise my hand. I have also put like all my eggs in one basket, right? I have done the thing.
Yeah,
So, it's really saying I think there's a, and again, I don't have a lot of guidance even in the professional space, but that I think there's this like, hey, what do you got in the tank? Hey,
yeah,
I've this is what I'm working with right now. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna do my best. I may hit a wall. I may need to put a pause. I may notice that I'm actually dysregulating right now. I
yeah,
need to go take care of myself. I notice that I'm beginning to get activated, right, or whatever. Like, and to allow that to be a dance. And again, I actually haven't read any readings on this. I've looked, but I something in me intuitively sort of saying like, there's another evolution here, and I know I've put way too much on my person, at times, right, in my whole life.
yeah. Sure. It's a human
Not
thing.
it's and until you realize it, you don't know what you're doing,
Yeah,
um, and so I think being open to each person's resourcefulness in a moment, and
yeah,
being able to appreciate, okay, this is what they've got, this is
yeah,
what they can handle, uh, and you just hope over time it's able to sort of, receive enough of what feels appropriate to you to feel that you're being heard,
yeah,
and to just remember we're all doing our best. And, I think it's so
yeah.
easy to lose sight of that in either direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you find over time that that person never has the space, like, that's a whole different conversation to have with your partner, right?
Yeah. Or that you're just simply unavailable for them,
Yeah.
right?
Whichever
Whichever
side,
way it
right?
is, it's
Because
just like, whoa, they're asking for that, and it doesn't seem unreasonable, and oof,
I
I'm
just
really not
am,
giving that to them, or so I think and these are just the kind of big boy, big girl pants to wear, especially as we get older,
yeah,
and just to be gentle. Like, these things are not taught.
no,
They're not
they're
taught. They're
not.
not modeled. The movies just lie, and
We need better
we
movies.
need
We
better
definitely do.
movies.
We need better movies.
We
I
need
mean, I
better
feel like we can
movies.
we have emotionally intelligent movies. Let's get on it, Alok.
Oh my God, hello. Whole future for Hollywood, like really emotionally intelligent, boy overcomes villain and gets girl,
Yeah, amazing. Oh, speaking of that, I feel like that's a beautiful transition for us to talk about how we shift the traditional alpha to the sacred alpha.
Got it. That traditional alpha is right, it's that domineering, win at all costs. There's a whole, and we know it. You've experienced it. You've been around them. They have a built personality that most of them aren't born that way. There's a small percentage that might be sociopaths and psychopaths, and they just function that way from a very young age, and they don't have a
Sure.
part of the brain that would prevent them from being that way. But the vast majority of traditional alphas learned it by they were indoctrinated into that culture, and it comes along with all sorts of behaviors that are not uplifting to women. Don't treat women with respect, don't speak about women with respect, right? View women as objects, and full objectification and over sexualization and all the things. And there's a well established culture of that. And, uh, a little while ago, this concept of sacred alpha came to me, where men like me, we like being strong, we like being powerful, we like leading, and yet we know that we don't want to do it that other way.
Right.
That that's just like there's something off vibrationally, but we're also not trying to be weak men. We're not trying to be limp men. We're not trying to deny our sexual energy. We're not trying to deny these parts of ourselves that are natural and normal, right?
Right.
That we have a primal nature about us as men that is coded in from gazillion generations ago. And so we're waking up to going, well, how do we reconcile these sort of, primal animalistic sides of ourselves, but in a new way, in a way that is
Right.
honoring of the collective. And so it's not about taking more, right? You need to, eat the weak and all these old antiquated ideas. And it's really saying, what is that new grounded presence, which again, work in progress over here, but it's
Yeah.
saying there's a different strength. There's a different definition of strong. There's a quiet strength emerging, right? There's a
Mm.
need to not have to be the loudest one in the room, right?
Hmm.
So it's not a sacrifice of many of the positive qualities of that understood alpha. Like, you don't need to deny it about yourself. I'm not a number two. I'm not a number five in a team. It's just not how I'm hardwired. And so if I was
Right.
to deny that about myself, I would literally be abandoning myself and setting myself up for a lifetime of torture.
Right.
So yeah, it's this awakening to say, what would a sacred alpha, how would they function? How would they operate? Would they just sleep around with tons of women and lie to their woman and all that stuff? No. No, they're not doing that. Period. Unless they're in an agreement with their woman that that's a perfectly fine. I don't have a judgment of it,
Yeah.
but they're not. There's a whole set of behaviors. Like most of the men I know don't drink alcohol anymore, or they drink it very rarely. It's just not in alignment. And again, I'm not here to judge alcohol. I'm just saying they're beginning to go, yeah, I want to be sharp. I want to be
Right.
sharp as a fucking axe,
Right.
in all circumstances.
Yeah.
And so they're just beginning to ask different questions about what it means to be an alpha and still honor the wonderful alpha elements without all of the sort of toxic pieces that have historically gone along with it.
Would you say that it's more about like living in alignment with your values and having more of like a grounded nature to you instead of a proving energy to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly proving is huge. I mean, when I awakened to the fact of how much proving energy I have done in my life, is like, oh my god, wow, how unattractive is that? Ugh,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's like once you begin to see these things, you may not fix them immediately right away, but you start going, oh right, that's not tolerable. So I think it's I think the traditional alpha, what they value, their values are just, I think the values themselves change. So
Sure.
integrity, honesty, right, loyalty. The traditional alphas expression of those things is very different. They're loyal to themselves, right?
Right.
Right. The integrity, not required, right? Honesty, not required, right? It's like
Yeah.
eat what you kill, at all costs, get more, profit at anybody's expense, doesn't matter. So I think there's an evolution of values going on in the sacred alphas, and it's really sexy and really magnetic for others of us like that. Like we see it. When I walk in a room and I start talking to men folk, like I can feel it. I
Yeah,
know
like Senika, like Elijah Kai,
that's
like
it. Yeah, these are
all these people, Jamin.
That's
Patel,
right.
like
That's
just
right.
really amazing men that like they definitely have an entirely different energetic frequency, and the way they treat the women in their life is top tier. Like just so much respect, so much sacredness. What I think about like when you're talking about this is a lot of people talk about toxic masculinity. And I don't see masculinity as toxic. I see immature masculinity creating toxic environments and toxic traits versus mature masculinity, which is very healing, right? And so when you talk about these things, I think of the traditional alpha as being in that immature masculinity space, and the sacred alpha being in the mature masculinity, like that space where you feel safe, where you can like drop in, where they're like trusted leaders, versus the immature masculinity, like those people haven't gone through like their rites of passage, right? They haven't gone through the eye of the needle and stepped into that space of
Woo!
mature masculinity.
I have to give credit where credit's due. I don't know, between my brother Sanika and my brother Segev, uh, one of
Like
them
it's
or
great.
both of them have said this idea, which is, it might have been Segev first who shared it with me. He said, there is no such thing as toxic masculinity. And I paused and I was like, well, tell me more. Like, I want to
Yeah.
hear this idea. And he simply said, and I believe Sanika has echoed this, that masculinity can never be toxic, that toxic behavior is just toxic behavior,
Exactly.
abusive behavior, and that
Hmm.
if you're being truly masculine, you're not going to be doing toxic behavior. So I love that as a distinction, and so I do agree that the traditional alpha is functioning out of an immature self, a little boy, the wounded little boy, the unhealed
Yeah.
little boy. And I'm not here to shame anybody. Our little boy is a work in progress. Our little boy
Yeah.
has been put into a prison and silenced for decades, told
Yeah.
not to cry, told to be strong, told to provide, told to be kind, told to set strict boundaries, told to be confident but not too confident. I mean, it's like the rules that the little boys inside, they're like, how am I supposed to be accepted? And better not be like that. Better start. And then what happens is the little boy
Yeah.
starts putting on all sorts of masks. And all of a sudden you get into adulthood and you're literally walking around with 35 different masks on, none of which are actually authentic to you. And then
Yeah.
you wonder why depression and suicide rates are through the roof with
Yeah.
men folk. So, and then it comes out as what? Anger, which is
Right.
really the only emotion other than happy that we are allowed, sort of, that we learn to express. And that
Yeah.
wasn't really mine. Like, I've always known sadness. I've always known like a much wider range. The average, when I say we, it's sort of that collective average
Sure.
we. And so that immature, wounded little boy comes out in all sorts of behaviors that are what then become toxic.
Yeah.
So,
Like people pleasing.
oh, people pleasing is another one. Oh my gosh, it's like you start because they start developing the idea that love has to be earned, that
That's
love
right.
has to be worked for, right? And so you're going to prove yourself, and if you're not doing and working for it, you won't be loved anymore for
It's
who
so
you are.
sad.
It's
Yeah. Like we can't just be
it's
loved for who we are, our beingness.
that's we're men are loved for our doingness, and as average. And again, I'm not
Sure.
only speaking about a person. I'm saying this is
Yeah.
this is this is what society says. You are valuable. You're valuable for how much money you make, right? You're valuable for things that are create toxicity in one's own mind. And when at the root of it, every little boy just wants to be loved just for being alive.
Yeah. Not how tall they are, how they
Uh,
look. Like,
oh my God,
how
most
much,
of
how
the
many
day,
muscles you have.
yeah, how big your
What,
dick is, like, it's like
yeah, all the
all
things.
these crazy things that most of which you can't actually control. And so you
Yeah,
overcompensate by either, going to the gym or, being really successful in business. And then you realize, you can make tons of money and you're still unhappy and trying to figure it out. Right.
yeah,
I just spoke with somebody. He's like, I've made all the money in the world. And I can tell you, it doesn't actually fix anything. And I know people think that's it. And of course, it would fix, let's say, if you need to pay rent and, got it. I'm not being
yeah,
petty,
basic stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but at a certain point, there's a happiness scale they studied, and it used to be it's about 75,000. Now I think it raised to about 83,000. Let's call it 100,000 at this point, right? Where
Sure.
happiness doesn't dramatically keep increasing. Sort of the happiness quotient tapers off. Make 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million. You're not actually going to be experiencing dramatically increased levels of happiness. And so, and then that's where you start confronting what's really going on, which is on the inside, right? Where
Yeah,
are you hard on yourself? Where do you still think you're not lovable? Where do you still think you're not enough? And most men will put on the masks and try to fake all of that. And as soon as you start talking to them, if you get a man to be real, all those things are there
yeah,
for
yeah.
the
I
vast
really,
majority of men.
I really appreciate your honesty and your candor. One of the things that I've always appreciated in engaging with you, for better, for
I
worse,
don't
some
know
days.
how else to be. It's like,
I know, it's true. It's fantastic. It does bring me to a question that somebody proposed, like brought to me earlier today, which is what are the characteristics of masculinity, not gender wise, but like energetically? I thought it was really a fascinating thing. Like, what characteristics are uniquely masculine?
I tell you, what I experience is groundedness, centeredness, calm amidst the chaos, clarity, certainty, direction, sovereignty, um, claiming one's power, not over anybody.
Hmm.
So that's a really important distinction. Just claiming that we are powerful beings. We don't need
Yeah,
dominion. That's that old alpha that needs
yeah,
dominion over. But for me, real masculinity is it's a quieter presence, a in which the ability to listen without reacting.
mm,
And again, these are works in progress. I can
yeah,
point them out, but I don't want the listener thinking, "Oh, wow, this guy's got it all figured out." I have it more figured out than I used to. That's for absolute sure. But what I really also tell, I believe another piece of masculinity is the courage to apologize and acknowledge when you may have made a misstep and to course correct and start again.
yeah.
And
A lot of power in that.
that takes a lot. And when our little boy just wants to kick and scream and say, no, no, that's not what happened, and defend and
Yeah,
deflect and minimize and do anything other than be accountable and improve one's listening and be able to take a step back and say, I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to go regulate myself right
yeah,
now, and I'm going to tell you exactly when I'm going to be back, right? So the person isn't left wondering.
yeah.
I think
It's
these
very
are
important.
I think these are all very wonderful masculine traits that create boundary and container and containment for anyone who's around them, not just with a female partner,
Yeah,
but it's with friends, and the ability to set standards and boundaries, um, and core values, and to live by them, come what may. Speak your
yeah,
truth. I think that's another absolutely masculine trait, which is to be able to speak your truth no matter what the outcome may be, not vindictively or cruelly, but simply uh, honestly, and to not be afraid of what may occur as a result of that. I know I wasn't able to do that in my entirety of my life. And
Mm,
now it's just getting easier and easier and easier. Um, Not that the ramifications aren't easier, but just, so you hit a certain point where you're like, well, the other way isn't working. The other way is not getting me what I want. So, well, okay, let's try this way, right? You'll
yeah.
eventually capitulate. A man will eventually capitulate. you know, once he's got enough cues that the way that he's going is not getting him what he wants.
Yeah. No, I appreciate all of that. I think that lends itself to the next piece of our conversation, which is the conscious leadership,
Yeah,
because it's just such an, like, listening is such an important part of conscious leadership, like to be able to reflect and look at all of those different things. And just as a reminder to our listeners, we were just discussing what masculinity is energetically. So, like having that balance within us, regardless of gender identification, that we have the masculine and feminine energy that we strive to create balance so that one isn't higher than the other. And so, knowing that within yourself as well in conscious leadership, I think is so important. So, we're always striving for balance.
huge. I mean, I think conscious leadership is the future of humanity. And again, there isn't a clear yellow brick road on this. There isn't
No.
a huge set of examples of exactly how one is it, or even a unified singular definition of it. I think it's simply saying there's an evolution of the questions that we're asking ourselves and of ourselves, right? It gets back to that core values, like what's guiding your leadership in your home? What's guiding your leadership in your companies? Are you functioning in the old paradigms of extractionary capitalism where it's like profit at all costs, right? Which
Right.
in terms of men and women, it'd be like, how many chicks could I take home, right? I mean, it's like, it's all that old paradigm stuff. So I think to be someone who's beginning to ask new questions about how do I want to lead? And
Yeah.
I'd say the big shift is from our cranial minds or cranial brain to what I call our cardiac brain. And our heart has 40,000 neurons. It has its own neural network. It has its own consciousness, its own memories, its own thoughts, its own opinions. You can believe me or not, up to you, doesn't matter. Science has shown this. And so conscious leadership, I believe, comes out of the cardiac brain, not the cranial brain. And I believe divisive leadership, unconscious leadership, extractionary leadership, the old paradigm of leadership comes out of the cranial brain.
No, that makes sense. It's like the difference between embodied leadership, right? Because so many people, they're just completely disconnected from their body. They're just like wandering heads, like floating around and over analyzing things. But embodied leadership, then you're able to listen to your intuition. You're able to listen to that cardiac brain. You're able to understand like those somatic responses coming up in your body from triggers and be able to be more discerning of when you are emotionally dysregulated and get to walk away. Because like when we're in that space of dysregulation, then we're not coming from our higher self, right? We're not able to live in alignment with our values as much because we drop into that lower self. What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought I want to say to any man watching, like if you're a bit like me, you might have, over time you'd hear this word pattern called, embodiment or embodied anything. And if you're maybe you're literal like me and you're like, what the heck does that even mean? So I want to just acknowledge you don't need to feel weird or dumb if you too were like, I'm in my body, right? Because people say,
You're
you're
like, what
not
do you
in
mean?
your body, right? I'd ask my female friends, they're like, yeah, they need you to help me understand something because I'm in my body. This is my body, right? So, just there's no shame out there if you're in the phase where you're like, I don't know what this embodiment thing is. But what she just said is really important. You might not know this language pattern, but you do know when you've had some worry go on and you probably felt it somewhere, some worry, some fear, some insecurity, some anger, right? So if you begin to start connecting to emotions, you know that your emotions show up somewhere below the neck. And any man can go, yeah, it's kind of right here, Alok. Right, got it. So that's the embodiment thing that she's talking about, is that it's not up here where that's really going on. You might have overthinking and rumination going on up here, but what's going on is you've got then worry, insecurities up down. Your body is starting to ring alarm bells, and those alarm bells, if you can just slow down and go and ask one question, just go, what's the emotional cocktail that's going on in there? Okay, just literally, it might take 30 seconds or a minute or longer for some men who really have no clue. This embodiment thing is, what's the cocktail? What's the brew? That's how I'm a
Yeah.
little fucking pissed off. I'm also kind of worried, like just name it. Just
Yeah.
name the brew, name the different alarm bells going on. And you'll probably be able to then figure out where they are in your body. Like they're happening somewhere, right? For me, a lot of it is center of the chest, which I actually now realize is my heart, that cardiac brain talking to me. I used to just go, well, I don't know, it's kind of right here, you know?
Yeah.
And I had a somatic therapist who was like, well, what shape is it? I was like, well, it's kind of like this shape, you know? And then one day I was like, that's my heart. For other people, it's in the solar plexus. For some people, it's in the gut, right?
Yeah. Low back.
And it's an interesting thing because people bring up intuition, and it's like, and this is a very confronting thing that I'm about to say. Very confronting. And I say it very delicately, particularly to females in my life, because nobody wants to question their intuition. And I position the idea for everybody to at least consider, how do you know the difference between your intuition guiding you on a truth and your body having a trauma based reaction to something that happened far long ago, but it's telling you it's happening right now? Because that's what trauma is. And
Oh, I have an answer for this.
go for it.
This is a conversation I have with people, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So, my answer to that is that your intuition feels clean and grounded and clear, like a deep knowingness. And the trigger, the somatic response, feels like static.
Hmm. I accept that as a possibility. I have run into a contradictory experience in that there are times, because I like internal family systems parts work.
Yeah, it's great
There's
work.
all these
So
parts
much
are trying to
goodness.
they're trying to protect us,
Yeah.
and I believe there are times where that part that's protecting us is often like that warrior part. It's like, no, we're fucking clear right now. We're clear, you know, and they believe that they are absolutely clear, and it's like, yes, and you're responding to something from 20 years ago right now, but you're thinking that it's happening right now, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not happening right now, but you think it is, and that ends up then being a whole ripple effect, and questioning that threatens their identity, and they're like, don't you dare tell me that I'm not clear right now. And then that creates a whole cascade. So
Sure.
I think it's a tricky question, because nobody wants to have their intuition questioned. And
No, for sure. I just think of like the intuition being like it calms your nervous system versus the other one that does not. Like even if it's just like the smallest thing that calms
yeah,
your nervous system, I'm like that's your intuition. That's like that deep knowing and truth versus
yeah.
everything else is just gonna keep it staticky and dysregulated and it's gonna feel
I,
like
I,
what you're
I
talking
I
about.
know I can see that as a possibility, that if it's calming, it's intuition, and if it's accelerating, it's something
Yeah.
other than that. Because the protective parts that accelerate rarely do it in a calm fashion.
No.
So
Yeah,
it's like, notice if you're not calm right now, it is likely not your intuition speaking.
correct.
It
That
is
is what I usually
it
try and tell
is
people.
it
But
is
it's such a great conversation piece.
Yeah, and it's certainly not one that I claim to have a firm answer on. It's more this investigation of,
Yeah.
how do I know if I just need to make a new decision on a thing, or
Yeah.
if I'm just reacting out of a wounded part of myself. And so Woo, big stuff, everybody. And again, was that taught? I went to like the best schools ever, and was that taught anywhere? No.
No, it's crazy how it is. For me, like when with my intuition, the only times that I've gotten myself in trouble in life is when I haven't listened to it.
Yeah,
That's just like where it lands for me.
yeah, great.
Um,
Listen to it more often.
yeah, facts. Yeah. Well,
Facts.
yeah. We get to laugh about that because we both know my life story right now.
But
You're
it's
like, what
fine
is
for all of us, you know. We probably could all look and go, "Wow, shoot," you know. Okay, got it. And you know what I've come to realize is everything is orchestrated exactly as it's supposed to be. And so, so
so true.
what I don't do is I don't lament or regret anything.
That's
I don't go,
powerful.
oh gosh, you know, I could have made that other decision. It's it needed to go this way exactly for reasons that I may not yet be privy to. And if it was
Yeah.
supposed to go another way, it would have gone another way, but it didn't, so it wasn't supposed to. And so that's a hard idea. I used to struggle with that idea, uh, but I don't really struggle with it anymore. I just go, oh, okay, got it. Like clearly, I may not yet understand why I was to make those exact set of decisions, but I trust that it will be revealed at some point along my journey.
And that's a really powerful thing to be able to surrender to that. With people who are struggling with those first steps, they're like in the middle of something that's exceptionally difficult and truly traumatic. What advice would you give them to take that first step?
Yeah, there's simply there when we're in a challenging circumstance, the I will know when I'm addicted to being a victim because I
Mm.
won't want to ask the three questions I'm about to share with all of your people. I will resist them. I'll like milk being a victim for a little longer. And it's pathetic, you know, because once you also realize that you're actively delaying asking these three questions, yeah, you got to really stare that in the mirror,
Yeah,
because we get something from being a victim. Okay,
sure.
and so the first step is to just refuse to be a victim to anything going on. That anything was done to you, and that's really hard. I mean, especially with really horrible things that go on. And I'm not belittling or minimizing, but I am going to lay out like the road out of it for me every single time when I'm finally ready to not be a victim.
Right.
Because then you have to take responsibility for your life.
Yep.
This is the turning point. And the three questions that facilitate that are number one, what am I to learn from the exact circumstance that's going on? Not complain about it, not say, well, so and so did this and blah, 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 or be hard on myself because I shouldn't have done that. That waste of time. But
Right.
simply, what am I to learn as a result of exactly what's unfolding right now or has unfolded?
Yeah.
Number two, who am I to become as a result of what I learned? This is everything. Like this
Yeah.
is the turning point of every once I understood this, literally, this is my turning point of every crappy moment of the last, I don't know, 15 years. It's not a one off, it's not a one and done. It's every time I'm unhappy about something going on in my life, I go to that first question, then that second question. So, what am I to learn? Who am I to become? And then this third one is the hardest, but it is the one that is the gas pedal on changing your life. How is everything that just unfolded for my highest and best?
Mm.
And if you cannot open yourself up to this, you're needing to be a victim. You're needing to blame somebody or something for what happened, whatever it is, whatever it is. But the moment you can start going, and by the way, I have seen, and again, I'm not being cavalier. I've seen, you know, sexual assault survivors be able to eventually go, oh my God, that led me to creating a movement that uplifts girls in 50 countries around the world. Like
Yeah.
it's you don't wish it on anybody, but then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that I, you know, okay, how was it for my highest and best? Well, it was, ended up being for like millions of people's highest and best. Don't wish it on me, but fuck, how, getting fired from a job. I mean, whatever the thing is, a breakup, like you go down the list,
Yeah, for sure.
and then you're like, okay, what did I learn? Who did I become? And how is it for my highest and best? Bar none, I've seen in my own life and witnessed in other people's lives fruits of the labor of asking those three questions and courageously allowing answers to emerge. And if we can't yet see how it was for our highest and best, and I don't blame people, I'm not saying anybody's got to rush that process.
Yeah.
Then what I say to myself is, and this takes a lot of courage, and I'm not telling anybody this as theory, I'm telling it as practice, is I go, I may not yet understand how this is for my highest and best. It may not have yet been revealed, but I have faith that it will be revealed
Mhm.
because 100% of the time it has been revealed.
Yeah.
And so that faith just allows me to trust that I will get the memo. You know, in 2016, when I lost everything, it was like brutal. How am I going to put food on on the table for my son? How am I going to keep a roof over the head, like of
Yeah.
not just me, but a little
Yeah.
boy? Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like that'll hit some primal part of you. Like you'll go out and do some crazy shit in under those circumstances. And so I did. I made some huge changes. I made some really powerful decisions. Fast forward to when the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden I had retooled myself into a new way of earning a living, and that business grew in the pandemic. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, that's why the universe sent those people that made life challenging in a moment,
Yeah.
compounded by mistakes I had made, and needed to remove me from a brick and mortar clothing company when a pandemic was coming down the pipe, which I couldn't understand because I couldn't see. I didn't know that,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it was revealed. And I was like, oh,
You
oh, that
like
was the
that?
best thing. That was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
The moment you can see as a, or at least open to the possibility that really hard shit can sometimes and very often at least be a turning point. You know, some people might
Yeah.
not be able to hear gift out of it, but maybe you can be open to a turning point.
Thank you so very much for that incredibly powerful wisdom for our audience, for anybody listening.
It's just lived experience, everybody. This I'm not telling you something I read in a book. It's like it was when I was on my knees, like this going, what has to change?
Yeah.
And there was a moment where I just stopped blaming other people for my life being the way that it is. And that was literally the moment the universe was like, oh, you're ready for a different reality.
Yeah.
Because as long as you're going to blame, well, they did this and they did this, and I'm not saying they didn't,
Yeah.
but if you're going to be a victim to that scenario, you'll have that life, and you'll just
Yep.
be then surrounded. You'll magnetize people who just complain about life being hard and screwed up, and then that'll become a badge of honor, and then you won't want to give that up because then you might lose those friends that have you over for Sunday complaint dinner and whatever.
Confirmation bias.
You'll just be surrounded
Create
by it.
confirmation bias. Yeah.
Ugh, ugh,
Yeah.
ugh.
Nobody truly wants that. Well, my friends, what you've gotten to witness over the last hour is conscious leadership, a man that truly embodies everything it is that he teaches other people. And that is one of the reasons that I was so happy to have Alok join us today. So, in closing, Alok, I would like to ask you, who inspires you in the world today?
For me, it's all the beings that continue a tradition of nonviolent action
Mm,
for uplifting humanity. And the ones that I've drafted off historically, the Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings, the Mother Teresa's, the Wangari Maathais, uh, they, they're not perfect beings. Okay, they made mistakes, a lot of which we talked about. Didn't treat their family. Some of them didn't treat their families well, etc. But they were courageous to take a powerful stand in some way, shape, or form. And then in today's era, you've got your Greta Thunbergs and various beings that are just willing to stand up for something bigger than themselves, and in many cases put their life on the line
Yeah.
for that which they view as uh, a sacred defense
Yeah.
of things that for many of us we don't feel should be a point of argument in humanity. And I'm very encouraged by such beings and fueled by such beings. Malala being another one, um, in who's standing up for girls around the world. And so yeah, it's the courageous, crazy ones who use their energy, their vibrational frequency, and their words to affect change.
Thank you so much, Alok,
Very
for
well.
sharing all that with us today.
It's my joy.
Where can people find you?
I'd love to invite people to come join the Uplift Millions Alliance. Come go to upliftmillions.com. You can go take a look and see what we're up to and see if it's a path that you feel like walking that transcends politics, religion, and dogma, to begin to just say there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a different way forward. And you can find me on Instagram, find me on Facebook, and it'd be my honor to walk alongside you.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody. It has been a power-packed evening. This is actually going to be a great week. We have Johnny Perone coming on to talk about his book for men's mental health on Friday at 6:30. And we have Adam Tudor coming on to do a group coaching call on Sunday. So stay tuned for more information on that. We've got some great men coming on every week to do some group coaching calls. And you can look up more on that on globalresourcesformen.com. And you can find the replay here on YouTube for Global Resources for Men. So until next time, everybody, you have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us.